Dear viewers, many people start schools with different purposes. But what if when somebody starts a school with many purposes? I have with me today a person who started school and is realizing her dreams. She is Nooraine Fazal. Warm welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
What kind of a school is this?
Inventure Academy is a school, the core purpose of which, the reason why we exist, is to instill in students the ability and conviction to realize their full potential and excel anywhere in the world.
Okay. How do you assume that every child has the ability to express, come out with full potential?
We believe that every one of us is different.
Okay.
We all have different talents and propensities. We have multiple intelligences. We have different ways in which we learn and different ways in which we express ourselves.
Okay.
Now, for example, some of us may learn through seeing things, others through hearing, others through doing things. So what we do is we created a curriculum based on the guidelines of ICSE, the Indian Certificate Examination, as well as the Cambridge examination, based on our school's core purpose, the reason why we exist, the values of the school. We've created a curriculum which takes into consideration all the varied intelligences that people have.
Okay. But most often people say that the existing methodology in ordinary schools itself is sufficient, but all that you need to do is innovate a little bit. But are you actually trying to say that you've done something different, or you've just, improved upon what is there already?
What we're doing is really doing two things. One, we're taking from traditional schools what we like about them, which is the focus on excellence, academic rigor, the inclusiveness,
and competitiveness,
the discipline, absolutely. But competition, we believe, is on three levels. One, versus yourself, to push yourself to do the very best that you can. Two, your benchmark against your peers in the class. And three, the world at large.
In that process, aren't you actually putting the child in a state of conflict?
What kind of conflict would you say?
Because in the sense, constantly the child is looking for competitors within himself, around him, everywhere.
We take into consideration, if you look at the socioeconomic situation in India right now, and going back to your previous question, where you said, what's wrong with the traditional education, essentially. Post 1991, given the economic reforms which have taken place in India, India has become far more integrated into the world economy. It's far more connected. We moved from being based primarily on agriculture, an agri-based economy, to service and manufacturing-based economy, to knowledge-based economy. So the kind of skills, the aptitude, the attitude, the expertise, which one requires, not just for excellence, but for survival, has changed.
But don't you think today the whole world is excellence, oriented? Because isn't it possible for somebody to just be oneself?
Absolutely, that's what the person wants to do.
Most of the parents or the teachers assume that a child needs to excel. But why should it be so? Why can't a child even come to your school and just be what he wants to be, or what he is destined to be?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, the objective of our school is to help students find out what they're passionate about. What is their life's passion, and to pursue that with commitment. So it could be that they want a person to be a rock star.
The child by actually creating an environment where some artificial desires could actually spring up or get sparked.
We have an environment which is very friendly. 100 out of 100 people who come to Inventure will tell you that they love it for the vibes that they get. They find it warm, they find it friendly.
Vastu?
Vastu, well, the Vastu is actually very good as well. We've got these community-centric clusters, a block, based on each age group. So you've got one for kindergarten, one for primary school, one for middle and senior secondary school. And the whole school is connected up.
In about 20 acres.
We've got a total of 35 acres, 20 acres of which is used by Inventure Academy. The other 15 acres are set aside to set up institutes of higher learning.
So today when a child comes to your school, what kind of a promise does the child get from you? Or is it just that an opportunity to realize how to explore oneself?
Both. One, going back to the core purpose, Inventure will instill in students the ability and the conviction.
What
So
do
it's
you
not just-
invent, in the sense, to begin with? It's like an inventure, nurturing invention.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when we started the school, I'm not a traditional educationist per se. I mean, I look at life as my school. I think as you go through life, you come across different
Because
situations.
you too learnt a lot of things on your own.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So for me, living and learning are inseparable.
Okay.
So as you go through life, you come across new challenges, and I think once you're ready for them, the two really are inseparable. So I'm bringing back a lot of what I learned in the wider world. I spent 12 years overseas from India. I was in UK, in Boston, in New York, in the US. I was in Hong Kong and China, Reuters, and prior to that, IBM. And I was also doing my master's in management at Boston University.
But why education?
If you look at India today,
Because to make money after a management degree, education was the right avenue, was it?
actually, I can think of far easier ways of making money than through education.
Okay.
So to go back to your question, if you look at India today, we've got 50% of our population under the age of 25. At the same time, if you look at the world at large, you've got countries like Japan and Italy who are actually
most of the
declining
people are,
population,
yeah.
right? At the same time, I think by 2020, I think McKinsey said that by 2020, they're going to have a shortfall of manpower for about 40 million people. Whereas India, we will have the population, we have the
exporting
population.
people.
Not necessarily, but at the same time, and again, if you look at, I read a book, Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations.
Okay.
So Samuel Huntington's research showed that when 20% of the world's, of a country's population is under the age of 25, they invariably have a revolution. Now when you look at India, our per capita GDP is about 900 odd US dollars, so about 45,000 rupees per annum. So there really isn't enough wealth to go around to be redistributed. So I think our education system should be focused on providing an education which is relevant for 21st century living and which is focused on creating wealth and creating jobs.
But aren't you actually educating the educated, or providing opportunities for the people who already have wealth?
I think it's a combination
Because
of
the
the
kind of things that you're talking about could be most suited for people who need it, who cannot ultimately afford it.
Okay. What you do is you look at it across the pyramid.
Okay.
So the way I look at it is, if I could educate and provide someone with the relevant education, someone who has the capacity to then go create more jobs.
Okay, but that doesn't happen
I would
in
help
India.
people across the board. I'm pretty sure Inventure would do that. The
Okay.
second thing which we're doing is we also provide opportunities for students from schools such as Parikrama to interact with our students,
Okay.
to come in for training programs that we provide. So for example, we're bringing the first multiple intelligences school in the world
Okay.
down to India. They looked at Howard Gardner's theory, which basically says that intelligence is beyond the traditionally valued and measured number smart and word smart. It's
Okay.
about being people smart. It's about being self smart.
Okay.
So given what you do, you'd be very good with people, for example. It's about being good with your body. It's about music smart. It's being good with spaces.
Okay.
So they're going to be coming down to train our faculty. We're also opening it out to NGOs and to schools such as Parikrama. What we're also doing is we're working with the Indian government, with a couple of organizations, NGOs, to take our instruction design process. They would like our school to be the pilot school for other schools in India.
Okay. But aren't you actually complicating something that's as simple as just being? For instance, a person need not actually be defined in as many dimensions or facets or in ways that a person may actually try to understand or study in. But what I'm trying to say is, when you start catering to more than one dimension of a person, somewhere aren't you actually trying to see a person as a subject, instead of actually catering to the totality or the holistic existence of a person?
That's precisely what we're doing.
Okay.
We recognize that it's not just one dimension.
Okay.
You don't go to school just for your board exams. The board exams are very important, absolutely. It's not just about being good at math or being good at English,
Okay.
but it's providing children with a platform where they can figure out for themselves what they're good at, what their unique identity is, what they want to do when they grow up, and make education relevant to that.
No, for instance, if
Yes.
somebody becomes happy because of something, if you try to actually see why you become happy and because what you become happy, don't you think the pleasure of being happy itself is taken away from it? So I think what these systems could actually do is make it a little more scientific, make it a little too much specific to a method of understanding things. Though your purpose is greater, but at the same time, aren't you trying to make a person become a little conscious about himself than just enjoying life?
I'd invite you to come to our campus. You will see that 100% of the students are incredibly happy. They're very natural.
Oh, you assume so, is it?
I know so.
Okay.
Parents of the school tell us that the one way they can get their children to comply with their wishes sometimes is by telling them if they don't do something, they will take them away from Inventure. I think that really is the best compliment and the best validation that someone can give us.
How many children do you have?
We have over 300 students now and over 60 faculty.
You've been running the school for about...
this is the 4th year now.
4th year, and from which class to?
From kindergarten through to grade 10 right now.
Okay.
We give our students a choice in 8th grade between pursuing ICSE or IGCSE. That's the Indian curriculum or the Cambridge curriculum. And we will go through to 12th grade in the next 2 years.
How many students per class and how many teachers per class?
We have a student-teacher ratio right now of around about 6:1. So for every 6 students in the school, there is 1 teacher.
Okay, but you have 65 teachers for 1 to 10. That means about 6 teachers per class.
It's not 6 teachers per class per se. We have 2 teachers per class up till grade 3.
Okay.
After that, we have 1 teacher. What we also trying to do is to build capacity. Is to train, is to develop faculty, is to attract and retain people who buy into, who believe in what we as a school stand for.
Okay, how expensive is this process of getting a child educated in your school?
If you compare it to other international schools,
I mean that we won't compare, but let's just talk about your school.
It's about 1/3 the cost of other international schools in the city.
Okay, but why? Was it deliberately kept that way?
Absolutely, it was deliberately kept that way because our target market is children of working professionals.
Most often people come up with this excuse saying that, you know, because it's so expensive to run an international school, first of all, without even defining it clearly as to why a school can be called international.
Right, absolutely. Which is why
they charge the kind of money that they do charge.
I don't want to comment about other international schools per se.
But coming to you,
but coming to us, when we set out, we were very clear about our target market. It is people who have either as the benefit, either because of their education or because of the work, understand that education is not just about rote learning. Life is not about getting the right answers to the right questions, because in life there's no such thing as you can't come in here and say, oh, it wasn't in my syllabus. So it's people who recognize that education is about developing soft skills, developing 21st century life skills, being risk takers, being curious.
But at the same time, once again, you're putting all these things in different boxes, aren't you? Saying life skills, soft skills, you know, academic skills, or, you know, technical skills and all that.
It's
actually trying to say that maybe all those skills have to be put in one box, actually, perhaps in different proportions, and people should just know when to pick up those skills when they are needed.
I think the education process should be such that it comes naturally. It's not something you're forcing. You don't go for a class on, okay, how can I work more effectively in a team, or how can I communicate more effectively? Sure, you have speech and drama classes, but the education approach that we follow is such that this happens naturally. We have multiple ways in which we teach, we have multiple ways in which we assess. So what we've done is we've created a curriculum which is progressive across various grades. It's very seamless. So if by 10th grade you're supposed to know X, Y, Z, what then do you need to know 9th grade, 8th grade, so on and so forth, right? And we have different ways of assessing our students. We have different ways in which they learn. They learn through project work, through teamwork, through peer teaching. We may use whole classroom instruction to introduce a concept, and then children will break away based on their preferred ways of learning.
But what kind of a process has gone into making the school what it is today. It could be possible to actually set up a school like this and make it, be so in reality only after a lot of research and work and experimentation and all that.
Sure.
But you've just been existing for about 4 years now, and I'm sure you're still in the process of establishing the school.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process. I think the day you say you've got it, you're gone. So prior to setting up the school, I spoke to other educators, members of the community, be it politicians, social workers, business people, academicians, to get their feedback on what we wanted to do. So what we started off by doing was speaking to about 100 plus families. We had group discussions with them. We spoke to about 20 educators and other members of the community. We then had a group strategy session where we brought together everybody who was involved in the school.
You do that quite often even now too. Don't you keep doing these exercises?
That's right. We do have workshops, because we think that a community which learns really fires up hope for all of us collectively. So absolutely, we started off by doing research, by speaking to people in the market to find out what it is that they would truly value. And what we found was that despite the number of schools already in existence in Bangalore, 83% of the respondents said that it's a school their children would benefit from going to. So much so that people were willing to pay a premium of 180%, 183% to be precise, or what they were currently paying in their schools, if a school could deliver on what we said we would. So basically our offering, we have a core purpose, we have certain values by which we live by. One of which, by the way, is to nurture individuality.
But a school like this could be a success only when you also inculcate those values. Though we speak about values in the society, in our culture, in families, in homes, at a very unit level, like in an individual too. But what kind of values do you talk about when you talk about actually imbibing in children?
When we talk about values, we're talking about the principle and the values we as a school will live by. One of them, for example, is to inculcate sensitivity. Now by that we mean sensitivity to people from varied walks of life, different socioeconomic backgrounds. So for example, we back it up by working with organizations such as Parikrama or such as NGOs or the Indian government to use our methodology, our education approach, our instruction design process for other schools. We also do things like every student in the school, for example, has planted a tree. We're working on getting permission from from the Karnataka government, the Lake Development Authority, to adopt a lake. So we can use that to teach children about rainwater harvesting, about water management. And we've actually set up our infrastructure, our architecture is built on those lines. So the school has various core values, one of which is encouraging sensitivity. And we back that up by quantifiables. So stakeholders such as parents can actually hold us accountable. So when we say we will encourage sensitivity, we actually tell them how we're going to do it. We, for example, celebrate all the various festivals in India. We work with people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. We work on preserving the environment, and these are very specific measurables.
No, sometimes people say when you control a child's anger, or when you get a child to actually manage his or her emotions, or perhaps when you make a child overly sensitive to things, or make the child become a little sensible about the way the world functions, in the process you may make the child grow up into a very passive individual.
Again, I think there is no one-size-fits-all approach.
You just finished 4 years because you don't know what these children are going to grow up into.
I think the best validation you get is from the children, because you see them growing up in front of you on a day-to-day basis. I don't think there is any such thing as the perfect person. I don't
You're
think
trying to do your best.
Absolutely. I mean, if I look back at the kind of education we had, it was a very one-size-fits-all approach. I felt many a time that I was in a factory line. You go in kindergarten.
But that made you street smart, and that's what is extremely
well, I'm
important.
glad you'd raised that, because I actually had 2% attendance through my years in college. Right? Because
But you encourage that in your school.
No, because I took what I liked or what I didn't like about the education system, and have incorporated that into Inventure.
The kind of school that you would have loved to go to.
Absolutely. So what I did when I was in school was I participated in a lot of sports. I represented the state in 2 sports. I represented the college in 5 sports. I organized cultural events. I went to Mount Carmel, it's not too far from here, right? So basically I recognized that, right, the education system was such, I mean, we had 100 students per class, and all the teacher really ever did was called out notes. I was fortunate enough to have a very good memory, so I would just pick up the books 3-4 weeks before the exams, memorize them, and go for the exams. I still graduated with the first class. So that tells you a lot about our education system. Let me give you an example. Marketing, finally a BCom. The kind of questions we had were, what are the advantages and disadvantages of advertising? What are the 4 P's of marketing? 1 year later, in the US, Boston University Master's Program Marketing, they gave us case studies to do. They gave us projects to do, to go and research the market for shampoos. So you need to know the theory.
Or rather, a reality education, right?
Absolutely.
These reality shows that you have.
Right.
Because you actually get to live it.
Precisely. What is the objective of schooling at the end of the day? It is to
if
prepare
it's not
us.
Applicable.
Precisely. It is to prepare us for the wider world.
Okay. But what did you learn from your mother, a politician like Korea?
Right. What I learned from my mother was not to
Mrs.
take no for
Fazal.
an answer. Absolutely. Nafis Fazal, I think you know her. She has got to be the most determined person I know. She doesn't know what the meaning of the word no is, and I think I definitely got that from her.
Okay.
A love for life.
Somebody who has been living by her own terms.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Is that very important for somebody to achieve something? Because if you're really bothered about what people think, what people have to say, what rules people have put for you,
I think at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself.
Okay. But
Because
is that
you
what
owe
you
it
do
to
in your
yourself.
school?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And one of the things Inventure stands for is also to nurture individuality.
Okay. And what do you understand or mean by individuality? Somebody who becomes too overly self-possessive, suffering from self-importance.
Not at all. What I mean by individuality is recognizing what you want to do with your life, what your life's passion is, to have the ability, the expertise in order to achieve that, to handle success as well as failure.
To be able to identify yourself.
Absolutely,
first,
to know yourself.
and to be able to place yourself somewhere.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
But these are actually very overarching, aren't they? Because is it actually possible to achieve these in a school? Because most often the complaint is that children, even after having studied in schools like these, once they go to an ordinary or supposed to be the so-called run-of-the-mill college, will ultimately fail to deliver.
I think this is the foundation years. Once you have that foundation in place, I think you can thrive and excel in any environment.
Okay.
And you can even change the environment.
Rather, it would actually come out someday when you need it.
Yeah.
Though you may get exposed to different things on the way.
Absolutely. And when I came back to India, it was actually the intention of setting up a business school.
Okay.
I had an MOU with one of the top schools in the US.
Okay.
Unfortunately, given the Indian government regulations, it was just not feasible.
Okay.
Right? So then when I started talking to people, I said, why are we waiting until someone is in the mid-20s or early 30s to inculcate this expertise?
You can start from the time a person starts going to school.
Absolutely.
Okay, but you got Irfan Razak as your partner.
That's right.
For this, and he's the chairman of the school.
Yes.
You are working as the principal.
I'm working as the CEO and the managing trustee of the school.
Okay, but
we have a principal.
But not in academics, is it?
I am involved in the academics as well. I mean, academics at the end of the day is the heart of the school. At the same time, I have a very competent, very good team who specializes in education.
But what do you do apart from just running the school? Do you also get involved in ensuring that your dreams are shaped into the kind of education that you offer?
When I first set up the school, I thought I could
do all
come
that.
up with the vision and get a competent team to run it, set up the systems and processes, and it would happen.
Be the mentor for the school
Right.
or something.
So I am the mentor of the school, but I'm also a doer. As I said, I have the benefit
Do you
of
teach?
working with, I think you teach with every interaction, right? I'm hoping at the end of this that some everyone would have learned a wee bit more about education and about the type of education which is relevant and required, not just for excellence, but for survival.
Okay, but how is the school doing today? Because
School's
with 300 students, is it possible to run a school like this?
Because of what we are looking to achieve, because of the education approach which we are implementing, it's very important to do it in manageable steps. And I could have called the school, say Bangalore Public School or whatever, and had a traditional approach to education, and we would have had 3,000 students today. But that's not why we've gotten to education.
Okay. But
So
it should be
it's-
viable, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sure that you've learned enough about business
Sure,
to know
sure.
how many students you need to have to run a school successfully.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean,
So-
you do have a very resourceful partner, but
Right.
that doesn't mean
No,
that
any
you-
institution
yeah,
at the end of the day, whether it's charitable or not charitable, has to be able to sustain
fend
itself.
for itself.
Definitely. So
Okay.
we're very conscious about the benchmarks, the milestones that we need to meet.
Okay.
So our goal right now is to ensure we get the education part of it, the delivery part of it right. We've got a brilliant team of people. We've got systems and processes to complement the people and to ensure that we deliver and to measure our achievement, and so we can take corrective action where required.
Okay.
So we follow something called an academic quality management system.
Okay. But you do a lot of other things too in your school, don't you?
Yes.
By doing different kinds of programs,
Sure.
to training your teachers all the time, to getting different thoughts and ideologies to coming to interact with your system.
Absolutely. And that again ties back to our values. So
Okay.
going back to one of our values of nurturing individuality and maximizing exposure, we get people who have excelled in different walks of life to come and share their experiences with the students and with the faculty.
Okay.
So we recently had, for example, a couple, they've come to school. We are going to have Rajiv Gowda, who's a budding politician here in Karnataka, come to school shortly. We have the first multiple intelligences school in the world to come and train our faculty.
Okay.
We had an orientation program, an induction program for both our students and faculty every single year. So this year we recruited 20 new faculty members, all of who went through a 3-week orientation program,
Okay.
as did our students. It's called Inventuring.
Okay.
And the objective of Inventuring is for the teachers and students to get to know each other better,
Okay.
to understand the unique way in which every child works,
Okay.
learns, what their strengths are, as well as what their development needs are.
How much thought did actually go into coining this name, Inventure Academy?
Okay. Goes back to the market research we did.
Okay.
Based on the research, we came up with what the personality of the school would look like.
Okay.
And again, based on that, we came up with different names. One of them was Excel, which turned out to be a bad guy in these Power Rangers. We liked the name, but it didn't quite work for us. Then there was Chrysalis, but we figured it would be more like for younger students. And the reason why Inventure Worked, a click, for example, I spoke to my nephew. I said, of these names, which one do you like? He said, I like Inventure because I want to be a scientist. Another child said, I like adventure.
Oh,
So
okay.
therefore Inventure. Someone else said nature. We spoke to parents, prospective parents as well. Fathers liked it because it sounded more like a venture capital fund, or mothers liked it because they
Okay.
said, well, it's venturing within yourself to
Okay.
learn who you are and what you can be.
Okay.
So
the
Inventure
part
Worked.
"ch" actually signifies in a way, particularly perhaps signaling something to do with growth.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The sound "ch",
Sure, okay. Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Because somewhere the idea of something that's growing, whether
Absolutely.
it's money or a tree or
Absolutely.
an
Life
idea
is
or
about change. Life is about growth. I mean,
Sure.
it may sound like a cliche,
yeah.
but the only constant is change. And
Okay.
therefore, we need an education
Are you growing
system.
with your school too?
Absolutely. I
Every
grow
day.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
prosperity too?
Sorry?
In prosperity too?
Hopefully, yes, absolutely. If you measure prosperity in terms of satisfaction, self-actualization, yes, absolutely. I can barely recognize myself from the person I was 3 years ago. And I think that's what life is all about.
What are
It's
the
about
other dreams that
constant-
you have for the school?
The dream for school is really for it to be the benchmark for education, is for our students to become productive members of society, whether it's that they just want to be or that they want to be more actively engaged in society. It's for them to fulfill their ambitions. And the way we would measure our success is by students excelling both academically, and when I say academic excellence, when you participate in sports, you learn how to set goals, you learn how to work towards them, you learn how to take risks, you learn how to be a team player.
Yeah.
So it's very much a part of our curriculum.
Nooraine means light of the eyes.
That's correct, yes.
So many people can see the spark in your eyes.
Well,
Also
hopefully.
get inspired.
Hopefully.
Doing a good job, Nooraine. Thank you very much for having come to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.